Good evening. You're watching a special episode of The Buck Stops Here, coming to you live from Ahmedabad. We're staying on this program with our special and continued focus on Gujarat through the week. It's an election that many people believe could alter the shape of national politics to come, especially within the BJP, perhaps even throwing up a possible prime ministerial candidate. It's the reason that this is an election that has attracted so much attention. But of course, it's also an election that has a polarizing leader at his helm, a leader that many people believe is headed for a third consecutive term as the Chief Minister of Gujarat, but one who is accused by his critics of playing a hand of divisive politics, something that the BJP says is a motivated campaign. Well, today Narendra Modi hit back at his critics with a photo op, with a visual image. And guess who was sharing the stage with him? It was a bouncer literally from the Chief Minister, Irfan Pathan, the son of a man who used to once give calls for prayers in Baroda, a national icon, sharing that stage, and in that image, Narendra Modi trying to say that Gujarat's Muslims have moved on. But what is the political space for Gujarati Muslims in an election where many of the people we've met say that they've been forgotten by both parties? That's what we'll be looking at on the program. Before we bring to you our special report, let me introduce our guests here with us tonight. We have Nirmala Sitharaman, senior leader of the BJP, and she's been in Gujarat a long time now. We also have with us Professor Bandukwala from Baroda. He's, of course, a scientist, but more than that, a very humane person who has also always spoken up for the need for reconciliation between the two communities. Joining us from the Congress is Amiben Yagnik. She's another feisty fighter on primetime TV these days. Also joining us from Bangalore tonight, a well-known columnist, Madhav Nalapat. He's joining us tonight. And we have from Ahmedabad tonight, Zafar Sareshwala. Zafar Sareshwala is a prominent industrialist, prominent Muslim family of Ahmedabad, and somebody who has spoken about the need to forget the past and move on with the future. And also joining us from Delhi tonight is Shahid Siddiqui. Shahid Siddiqui, of course, is the editor of Nayi Dunya and lost his political job just for interviewing Narendra Modi. All right, now before we come to our panel discussion tonight, let's start with our special ground report. The BJP says that it is actually communalizing the issue to talk about voters in terms of Hindus and Muslims. But the BJP has faced some criticism for not giving even one Muslim politician a ticket in these elections. The Congress, by contrast, has given 7 Muslim candidates tickets. But when you talk to the ordinary Muslims in Gujarat, one of the things that emerges is that beyond 2002, what they talk about is development. But many of them feel that they do not have access to this development, and they worry that without political representation in the state assembly, economic progress can really never be theirs.
श्री इरफान भाई पठान जबरदस्त तालियों की आपने बजाना है।
It was the perfect political photo op. A beloved cricketing icon, the son of a man who used to give the call for namaz prayers in a Vadodara mosque, sharing the campaign stage with Narendra Modi. Here was a bouncer from the Gujarat Chief Minister to stump his critics, who have long accused him of building his political success on an edifice of divisive politics, one that excludes the state's Muslims. Modi's attempts to reinvent his persona and step out of the shadow of the 2002 riots began with his Sadbhavna or religious amity fast last year. But on that occasion, the picture-perfect moment was spoilt when in the gaze of the cameras, the Chief Minister, who had worn a variety of turbans and pagris gifted to him from religious leaders, refused to accept a skull cap from a Muslim cleric, choosing to drape a green chadar around his shoulders instead. The election postcard today, however, was seeking to deliver a clearer political message. Gujarati Muslims, Modi seemed to be arguing, have moved on.
It's a very important gesture. Sends a very strong message for the youth of India who see him as a cricket icon, who's come there by sheer dint of hard work, achievements of great quality skills in the game, and for him to be there certainly passes a very strong message.
With the Congress choosing to entirely sidestep 2002 in their election campaign, the debate around the Muslim community in Gujarat has shifted from the subject of the riots that took place a decade ago to a more basic question. What is the political space for Gujarat's Muslims? Are they being forced to the margins of the political discourse? Are they in fact being rendered politically irrelevant? In a state where Muslims make up almost 10% of the population, the BJP has failed to give any Muslim a ticket to contest. The Congress has fielded 7 Muslim candidates. The BJP says the decision is based only on winnability, not prejudice, and points to the hundreds of Muslim candidates who took part in the rural and urban local elections of 2010. But the Congress says the invisibility of Muslims in the BJP political space today is evidence of an exclusionary philosophy.
If a government is secular, if it is inclusive, then development is secular and development is inclusive. And it means, amongst other things, justice, it means security, it means feeling of belonging, it means feeling that the government is yours, and in all senses of the word. Now, there may always be issues here and there that you may not like about your government. But the fact that every citizen stands up and says, this is my government. So I don't think we must make these artificial divides that there's a secular versus communal debate and there's a development versus non-development debate.
On the grounds, the truth is a little more complex than all these certitudes of political rhetoric. A select number of upper-class Muslims, especially businessmen and industrialists, are now clearly ready to engage with the Modi government. Zafar Sareshwala, from one of the oldest families in Ahmedabad, is one of them. His home and office were ravaged by the rioting in 2002. But today, his business has sprung back to life, and he believes holding on to the past is only unhealthy and damaging.
I was a victim. We lost everything. Our assets had become zero. But then, do you mean to say that we live on of our wounds? Should I make my wound my ornament? And nobody is going to pat me on that. After 2002, till now, it has been absolutely peaceful. So there is a peace dividend to it. And there is no tension. People know that everything is absolutely peaceful. And that is the most important requirement for a Muslim to grow. Because he bears the brunt always when there is slight disturbance.
And so, the opportunity to throw one's nets into the current of the Gujarat economic growth story has, in some instances, altered the narrative of Muslim marginalization. But the question is, how many Gujarati Muslims have that chance? The geography of Ahmedabad today tells its own story. Ghettos and separate living quarters have now sprung up in a city where Hindus and Muslims once lived in mixed neighborhoods. The long history of cultural overlaps, Muslim workers who made kites for the Hindu festival of Makar Sankranti, or Muslim craftsmen who produced the bangles and bindis that Hindu women wear, has been distorted by successive riots.
Ghettoization has worsened. In 2002, almost completed it in a city like Ahmedabad. Whatever little was there was swept off. But you see district after district is being cleaned off. You're getting incidents of such cleaning up even as late as 2 months back in districts like Baroda.
So while much of Ahmedabad gleams from the growth story, away from the glitzy malls and the car showrooms is also congested, underdeveloped and very noisy Juhapura, a Muslim locality that has evolved as a separate township.
आप लोगों से 2 मिनट बात करेंगे. हाँ?
At the local auto rickshaw stand here, we meet Jahangir Sheikh, one of the many residents who feel he has very little to gain from these elections. Gujarat's growth story, he tells us, is genuine, but it is real for other people, not for him.
जहांगीर जी, मुझे ये बताइए कि यहाँ पर ऑटो रिक्शा स्टैंड है, आप में से और सारे लोग ऑटो रिक्शा चलाते हैं, यहाँ हम जुहापुरा में हैं. ये जो चुनाव आने वाला है, इसको लेकर यहाँ पर कितनी दिलचस्पी है लोगों में?
दिलचस्पी आम आदमी को बहुत कम है, लेकिन जो पॉलिटिक्स से रिलेटेड है उन लोगों को ज़्यादा दिलचस्पी है इसमें।
आप लोगों को नहीं है?
हम लोग तो रोज़मर्रा की ज़िंदगी जीते हैं, सुबह उठ के वही ऑटो निकालना है, शाम को 200, 300, 400 रुपया कमा के घर जाना है, 20 बच्चों को, माँ बहनों को पालना है। अब इन सब चीज़ों में हम इंटरेस्ट रखेंगे तो हमारा घर कैसे चलेगा?
We clamber onto the back of his scooter and see his neighborhood through his eyes. Here the Muslims we meet don't speak to us about the shadow of the riots. Instead, they want to talk about the fact that their colony doesn't have a proper water supply or sewer line that works. Johapura originally developed to house flood victims in 1973 and then subsequently the riot victims of 2002. But it did not even have a town plan till 2009.
तो आप कह रहे हैं कि जो डेवलपमेंट गुजरात में हुई है वो मुसलमान इलाकों में नहीं हुई है?
मुस्लिम एरियाज में नहीं हुई है, बहुत कम, ना के बराबर हुई है। जो भी हुई है वो सब आउट एरिया में हुई है, जहाँ पे मुस्लिम बहुत कम है या तो है ही नहीं मुस्लिम, ऐसे एरिया में डेवलपमेंट हुआ है।
अच्छा, एक जमाना होता था कि अहमदाबाद में हिंदू मुसलमान इकट्ठे रहा करते थे, अभी जुहापुरा जैसी जगह में सिर्फ मुसलमान लोग रहते हैं।
सब एरिया डेवलप हो गया है।
अच्छा।
हिंदू का एरिया एक जत्था अलग हो गया, यूथ, एक मुस्लिम यूथ अलग हो गया है। अभी ऐसे आप हिंदू हो, मैं मुस्लिम हो, हमारे घर पहले पास पास हुआ करते थे, आज उसकी जगह पे किलोमीटर में बट गए।
Neighborhoods like this Muslim locality of Johapura are now virtually cities within cities. The process of ghettoization in Ahmedabad is very deep-seated. The real question for many of the people we meet here is of political relevance. With the BJP not giving any tickets to Muslim candidates and the Congress playing a cautious, low-key campaign, many of the people we meet here are asking, does our vote count at all?
Syed Shabuddin, a prominent voice from the Indian Muslim community, courted controversy when he wrote Modi a letter saying Gujarat's Muslims see some signs of change in your attitude, but added 9 conditions that Modi must accept before there could be what he called a reconciliation. One of these was a public apology for 2002.
He had made many efforts to convey support among Muslims, meeting Muslims, getting gifts from him, and so on and so forth. And some Muslims were going towards him, and especially among the rich class, perhaps the businessmen who wanted something from him. Now, I thought that might have an effect on the overall Muslim view towards. So, the purpose of my letter was primarily strategic, to show these people what really Modi has stood for.
Whether Gujarat's Muslims have space for real political participation or not may have little impact on the outcome of these assembly elections. But in the age of coalition politics, the question of inclusive politics will become relevant once again when the focus shifts from Ahmedabad and moves to the national stage in New Delhi.
India's #1 news app just got even better. Download NDTV's new app. Fully optimized for retina display. Full screen view. Faster response time. And Sudoku. NDTV's new iPad app. Download now.